it's Andi, personal trainer in the Writing Gym and host of the Writing Gym podcast. This week we have a very special treat for you. It's the second installment of the 6-part series all about how to become a published author. In this second episode, we talk about understanding the difference between knowledge and the application of knowledge. Are you tired of buying every single how to write book? Are you sick of not getting results no matter how many classes you take? Are you frustrated that all of your efforts haven't led you to any success? In today's episode, we're going to dig into the true difference between acquiring knowledge and applying knowledge. You're going to want to take notes on this one. Also, we've put together an amazing freebie for you that outlines all of the mistakes we see writers make regarding knowledge and how to fix them, plus much, much more. You're not going to want to miss this valuable resource, and it's free. Just go to www.writing-gym.com/knowledge to download it today. Now, let's dig into the how to stop feeling frustrated and get into finger flying flow. Hi, I'm Andi, personal trainer at the Writing Gym. Welcome to this very special episode with Annalisa Parent. I'm excited to introduce you to our wonderful Annalisa, but first a word from our sponsor, the Writing Gym. You know, you could break free from feeling like your writing is never good enough. You could write freely and achieve your publishing dreams. I know that you're tired of the rejection and laying awake till 2 a.m. wondering how you could have fixed your manuscript. Wallowing in self-doubt is not getting you any closer to your writing goals. You need real standards, real support, and real change. Are you ready to transform your writing and take it from the slush pile to publishable? We are currently accepting select writers in the Writing Gym VIP program. If you'd like to see if you're the right fit for this accelerated program, you can talk with Annalisa directly. That's right. She's currently booking calls to talk to you about your manuscript, where you are, where you'd like to go, and how you can get there. Spots are very limited, so make sure and sign up now at www.datewiththemuse.com/book-a-call. We'll place a link in the show notes for you. And now I'd like to introduce you to our resident writing coach and our special guest today, the gal who helps you pump your writing into shape in the Writing Gym. Welcome back to the Writing Gym podcast, Annalisa Parent.
Thank you so much, Andi. It's great to be here with you again.
So to let our listeners know, this is a very special series of episodes where we're talking about the 6 secrets to becoming a published writer and all about how you can finally make those steps to really get your work out there. And today we're going to focus on a particular section. And I kind of just want to start that conversation with the question to Annalisa of what do you think that most writing classes get wrong?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, this special podcast series that we're doing is an extension of a book that I just released. It's a short book. It's a free book. It's a free download, which, Andi, if you'd be so kind to put that in the show notes as well. The title of that book is The 6 Secrets to Go from Struggling Writer to Published Author. And so we're digging into those secrets here on the podcast, and the book will outline all of those secrets for our listeners and our readers as well. So you asked, what do I think most writing classes get wrong? Well, this is really an interesting question, because if you picture in your mind, and if you're driving, please don't close your eyes to picture this, but if you picture in your mind the typical classroom, and even Hollywood's version of what a teacher does is a teacher at the front of the room, a chalkboard, a whiteboard, maybe a super fancy tech board, and then students seated with the expectation they're supposed to be listening, absorbing. And despite almost 100 years of pedagogical research, and more recently the application of neuroscience to education, which shows quite clearly that this is a model that actually doesn't work for most types of instruction. Notice that I didn't say all, but most types of instruction and meaningful learning on the student's part. Not only do we have this as a paradigm of which we think for education. It actually is the reality, not just of third grade classrooms and 12th grade classrooms and English 101 at the college level, but for writing classes as well. And so what's not working about that is that we now understand better how the brain works, how it learns best, and the degree to which the student must participate in his or her learning. And yet, so many writing classes aren't doing that. Now, some of them might give a prompt and give you a little bit of feedback, or some of them might allow you to hand in some pages and get some feedback from the professor or from your peers. But when we're learning, there's a long process that happens of trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and succeeding a little bit and trying and failing. That whole exchange that happens is integral to us making progress. And yet, students who are sitting passively are not getting that experience. So many writing classes are still using a model that we've scientifically proven is not the most accurate from a neuroscientific standpoint.
So to break it down for our listeners, what you're essentially saying is the big difference is, standing up there, telling people a bunch of information and giving them the knowledge they need, as opposed to letting them actually use, practice, and fully understand and apply that knowledge that they're given.
Right. So yeah, we're talking about the difference between knowledge and the application of that knowledge. So, we say that knowledge is power, and I'm sure that it is, but if you don't know how to apply that knowledge, then you're not very powerful. So, if you stand at the front of the classroom and show me how to tie my shoes, and I do some reasonable approximation of tying my shoes, but I haven't gotten it quite right, I still might trip and fall on my face. And I think that that's a pretty good analogy to what happens a whole lot when we're shown how to do something, or maybe we get to try it a little bit, but we don't own that knowledge, we don't practice that knowledge, and therefore we fall on our faces and we flop.
And it's funny, in the book, the booklet that I will put in the show notes, you use this really amazing imagery about looking at any writer's bookshelf. So just anybody who is an aspiring author, or even those of us that are published, and you see just a slew of books on how to write. And it's something that, I know that I've talked a lot about in the personal training sessions for the VIP, and I know it's brought up a lot throughout the VIP program, as well as I'm sure in the mastermind program, about all of the how to write books that people purchase, from all of these different authors, and how you can read those over and over and over again, but you're not really getting any work done, and kind of, taking that knowledge that you read in those books and turning it into your own published work is such a difficult step to make.
Absolutely. And it's not just the books, Andi. As we've seen with so many writers that we've talked to, it's the conferences and the workshops and the free writing class at the library and whatever it is that people are out there and try to learn some more. But what happens is, a couple of things, as we've seen. So these writers go to these classes and they're not having the right kind of interaction with the instructor. And two, as you point out, they're not then applying this knowledge to their actual manuscript. Now, it's not really the writer's fault, because if I pick up a book on how to fix my car engine, that does not make me a mechanic. Maybe if I'm really lucky, I might be able to check my oil, because that's pretty straightforward, but I'm not going to be able to replace my transmission. That would be really hard. And in order to learn to do something like that, I would need some feedback. I would need somebody who knew, where is the transmission? Which screws do I need to take off? And I wouldn't just do it once. I'd have to do it on a lot of cars. And that analogy is apt, because my understanding for people who do become mechanics, car mechanics, this is a hands-on skill, and they're training under somebody who understands and knows this skill, this craft, this art really well. And there was a time in our history where everyone who trained in that way, right? So we had, in the medieval ages, we had these guilds where you would learn your trade under a master tradesman. And writing should be that way, and yet it is not. And so these writers go to these conferences and they get information. Here's where the period goes in the sentence. I hope you're not going to those kind of writers' conferences. But they're not really getting, how do I apply this? Because that's not what the conference is for. That's not what the book is for. The author can't step out of the book and say, oh yeah, the problem that you have in chapter 3, here's how to fix it, right? There's no conversation. There's no interaction. And so I think a lot of writers, in fact, I know that a lot of writers, because you and I have had this conversation with writers, feel really frustrated because they don't know how to take what it is that they're seeing in the book or the video or the conference or the whatever it is and actually turn that into quality, finished book.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult for many writers because they go through this and they go to, this conference here and this conference here and then this writing class here and this writing class here and, this seminar at this place and, well, maybe there's this training thing that I'll do over here. And they go through all of these different, experiences, hoping to find that breakthrough, hoping to have that aha moment of, this is how I finish my book. This is how I publish. And they just continue to, spend a lot of money for those things and those classes, those conferences, those seminars, and still come out of it at the end without the ability to finish their work. And this is something, you've said it before, we talk to so many writers that come to you about, I have been working on the same novel for 19 years and never been able to finish it, even though I've spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on all of these other things trying to find that way, trying to apply this knowledge.
And the other thing that happens in that situation is that I've seen a lot of writers, and I know you have too, who waste a whole lot of time researching, just remaining confused, right? So somebody says, I don't know, make sure that you do this thing in your dialogue, and they don't know what this thing is, what it means, why it's important, right? So they spend all of Saturday afternoon reading everything that Google will tell them about how to do this. Are they getting their novel written? No, they are not. And once they sort of figure it out, what they're going to find, and I don't care what thing you Google, there's going to be somebody who says, you absolutely should do this thing. And there's going to be somebody who says, you absolutely should do this thing. And there's going to be nobody who says, here's how you do this thing. And you're going to be confused.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just the difference between do this and well, not just the do this part, but I think that every single writer who's working on something has, the struggle, the writer's block, the whatever you want to call it, the frustration where they get to a point and they're thinking, I know something is wrong. I'm not published because of some reason. I'm not finishing this work because of some reason. I'm not doing what I want for whatever reason. I just don't know what that reason is. And so having someone to sit down with you and go, listen, I've read this, I've looked at this, we've talked about this. This is exactly what's going on. And these are the steps you need to take to fix it. And I think that's why it's been so exciting for me to be a part of the Writing Gym VIP program, because that's precisely what happens throughout the course of this program. I won't go on and on. Annalisa, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about the VIP experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're onto something that's really important there, Andi, as far as the work that we do. I am not the teacher who stands at the front of the room and says, do this and do that and make sure that you always and never do this other thing. That's not useful. The experience that the participants have in the Writing Gym programs, whether it's the Writing Gym VIP program that helps you to finish your novel, whether it's the Publishing Mastermind that helps you to find representation for your novel, to revise it to publishable and find representation, or whether it's the Novel Selling You that then helps you to build out your author platform and sell your novel. These authors are having a customized experience that's really unique to them and what their questions are. Certainly we talk about what the principles are of quality craft, what the principles are of writing a quality query letter, what the principles are of creating a thorough author platform. There are some rules, there are some things that we do. But this is an opportunity to apply the knowledge of how to finish a novel, of how to sell a novel, of how to publish a novel, how to apply the knowledge to the actual doing and say, hey, how's this going? How does this sound? Do you think I should do this? One time I read this, that somebody thought I should do this, and I'm wondering if that's going to work for my book. What do you think? Should I try that thing? Okay, I've tried it. Now, how does it work? Is this working? Should I take this out? Should I add more? Should I take out more? How many words should this be, right? Authors have all kinds of questions. And within the context of the Writing Gym programs, they're getting feedback. And that's really what you're talking about here, Andi. And, anybody who's heard me talk ever has heard me say the word feedback, because I talk about it a lot, because it's something that so many writers get wrong. And again, not necessarily their fault. They think that they're doing the right thing, and yet they're banging their head against the wall over and over and over again, maybe without even knowing it, because they don't even know that there's an alternative. They don't know that there's a different way that they could do this thing where they could get actual feedback that helps them to move forward instead of pushing them backwards and backwards and backwards. You know who I'm talking about when I mentioned, one of the people in the Writing Gym VIP right now who had gone to a retreat with a published author, and was so excited. This published author was going to give her some feedback on her manuscript, and had the session with the author, and the author said, oh, I've got all your solutions for you. Just do this, 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 and this. And I think it was 2 years that she sat on this book before she worked with us, and she hadn't done anything on the book because she was so frustrated, because this was a cookie cutter solution that she didn't know how to do, and it didn't feel right for her book. But she thought that this published author would be able to give her that kind of feedback that she needed. Well, no, lo and behold, this was not the case. And this particular participant in the Writing Gym VIP, she's just about to graduate, and she's done with her novel at this point. Super exciting. She thought she was doing the right thing. But once she found the right solution, the right feedback, the right application of knowledge to the writing of her novel, her world opened up. I mean, her adult son asked her if she was okay, because she had a spring in her step and a sparkle in her eye that she had lost. She fell in love with writing again. And that's a wonderful thing that can happen once you're in that right zone, once you're working with your brain instead of against it, once you're getting the kind of feedback that is moving your writing forward instead of banging it up against the wall over and over again.
Well, and I think the reason that I'm so happy to be involved in the program, and why I believe so much in the work that you do, is that in every single one of your programs, you approach the writer holistically. You approach them knowing that they've gotten all this knowledge from all these other places over the years, through college and seminars and books and all these other things, and that each person is an individual. And what works for person A may be the worst idea forever for person B, and that's okay, because that's just how they work individually. And it's not necessary to go, well, no, I came up with this way and you have to do it that way. That's not fair. In the same way that we have some people who are chronic outliners who have to outline every single tiny little detail, and then there are others in the program who are pantsers who sit down and go, what's going to happen today? Mm-hmm. And still having the ability to have them both in the program, both making incredible progress on their novels, and finishing them, and knowing that they can still come to all of the different, meetings throughout the weeks and get the kind of support that they need without feeling like a certain way is being shoved at them, like, well, you don't outline, so, you're terrible. And, we've certainly all been through programs like that where you're sold a specific way and you're told this is the way you write a book and this is the only way you should write a book. And then you go home and you sit down at your computer and you start doing that and you're like, this is not the way I write a book. I'm not doing this right. And you're frustrated and angry. And like you said, banging your head against the wall and realizing, I think it's this moment of release that I've seen with every writer that I've personally seen come through the VIP program, where they have this moment of like release and relief when they realize that what the program is finding a way that works for them, giving them the knowledge and saying, okay, well, let's finish this. How can we help you? How can we support you? How can we make this work for you? As opposed to, here's this way, do it this way, or you're wrong.
Yeah, and
that makes such a
a
difference.
really interesting point there, Andi, about the holistic aspect. And if I can just take that braggy brag moment, I'm a 2-time Teacher of the Year nominee in a former career because I studied neuroscience. And this is a question that people ask me a lot. I've been asked this a lot on podcasts and television, radio interviews, like neuroscience and writing, like how does that go together? And my answer is about what happens behind the scenes. Like somebody asked me on a podcast interview recently, so how do you teach your writers about neuroscience? And I was like, I don't. Everything that happens with neuroscience in the writing gym happens behind the scenes. It's my job to do that analysis, to create this sort of neuroscientific profile, if you will, for each one of our participants. And I mean, it's not like it's a big secret that I'm keeping against them or something. It's just, my job is to create that evaluation and then to work with that writer in the way that helps him or her to find his best writer. So it happens seamlessly, and in fact it does, that suddenly these writers are like, oh my gosh, it's so easy now, it flows. I think the person that you were just referencing has written 80,000 words and she's got 2 weeks left in the program. I mean, that's phenomenal. First-time novelist, never written a book before, 80,000 words in 6 weeks. I mean, that's phenomenal for a person to do. And how did she do that? She got into that space. And so it comes from a space of understanding how the brain works, how the brain learns, and then implementing that in the way that I work with writers. And that's an important part of the application. We don't talk about that a whole lot. In fact, ever, I don't think, on the podcast is the connection, that neuroscientific connection to the feedback loop, the neuroscientific connection to the application of knowledge. So it's not just, these kind of hollow statements about what we do. There's also many years of neuroscientists. I am not a neuroscientist, but I have studied the application of neuroscience to learning, to creating, to the creative process. And so that's a really important thing that happens, that we do. And it can't be underestimated in this whole process of what you're talking about and treating people for who they are. And that's really my mission, is to help writers to find the writer they are and to be that writer in the very best way possible. And my tool is craft and neuroscience.
I love that. I think you need to make a t-shirt. All right. Well, I think that pretty much exactly answers the question about, knowledge and versus the application of knowledge, and really just what you do that really helps writers to do that. So thank you so much, Annalisa, for really just imparting all of that on us, and for helping the people that you do, because it's made such a difference, I know, in so many writers' lives. And for all of our listeners, you've just heard this amazing information about exactly how all of these programs, what all these programs are based on, and the neuroscientific research that goes into them. So I know that you're all probably chomping at the bit to figure out exactly how and where you can sign up. So if you found all of these tips valuable, you can get your writing pumped into publishing shape in the Writing Gym VIP group. Or if you are, finished with your novel and want to work through the editing and revising, maybe you need the mastermind, or maybe you need Novel U. Whatever you need, Annalisa has the answer. But first, you have to book your call and tell her what you need. So go to www.datewiththemuse.com/book-a-call. Trust me, you guys, it will be the best 45 minutes ever that you invest on your writing career. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Writing Gym podcast. Happy writing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Writing Gym podcast. How was this episode helpful to your writing journey? Tell us all about it in your review of the show on iTunes or Stitcher. Speaking of your writing journey, what are you doing to take the next steps? Do you need to finish your novel? Revise your novel? Move toward publishing? What would it be like to speak with an expert about where you are, where you'd like to go, and how you can get there? To speak with a member of the Writing Gym success team, book a call at www.datewiththemuse.com/publish now. And as always, happy writing.